Hey you guys, hey everyone, welcome to my channel. We're going to talk about a story that broke a few days ago, right after Alec Murdaugh was found guilty and sentenced to 2 life sentences for killing his wife and his daughter. This comes with an automatic trigger warning due to the nature of what we're going to be discussing. We're going to be talking about obviously murder and sex work, forced sex work, abuse and things of that nature. So if that's something that you find triggering and you need to set it out, I completely understand. Let's go ahead and let's get into it, you guys. So a lady by the name of Jessica Edwards came out on her TikTok account a few days ago to say that she was the victim of Alec Murdaugh, that she was forced into sex work, and that through this sex work that she was doing, she was ordered to provide services for a lot of high powered men. And on multiple occasions, she was brought by her madam to service Alec Murdaugh, along with other people. Alec Murdaugh was would have friends there. Can you guys hear me or see me? I'm not seeing myself. Okay, you guys can see me. Okay. I don't know why it never pulls up on my computer. I can only see myself on my phone. I don't know why. So Jessica Edwards, like I said, she came out on her TikTok account to talk about her abuse. This was after Alec was found guilty. Her TikTok account is now private. I would have to imagine she's probably getting a lot of pushback because there are some people that thinks that she's doing this for money, for fame, for clout, whatever. She says that that's not true, that she did an interview recently, and I'll link it in the description box below. But she says that the reason she came out with this, or what really pushed her to come out with this, was when Roe v. Wade was overturned, because she says, she knows like some people will use use abortion as a birth control method. And she can, I guess kind of understand why people may disagree with that. And there may be laws put in place to keep that from happening. She said, however, her biggest issue with Roe v. Wade being overturned, is, sex workers, people who are forced into this kind of work getting pregnant. And then them having to live with their rapist, having a baby by their rapist. So let's go ahead and let's get into the story, you guys. She came out on her TikTok account. She has since done an interview, and the Daily Mail and several other outlets have printed about this situation. I want to say this is all alleged. I have no proof of, if she's telling the truth. I was shocked by some of the things that she said in the interview. She said Roe v. Wade is what inspired her to come out. But I'm like, Roe v. Wade that happened like months ago, right? Before Alec Murdaugh even, his trial even started, I believe. So why did she not come out back then? But either way, maybe she couldn't. Maybe she didn't feel like she could until Alec was found guilty. Maybe she felt like, Alec is going to stand trial, but he's probably going to get away with it. So I still don't feel like I can come out. Maybe seeing that he was put behind bars for good gave her the strength to talk about this. So we're going to go off the Daily Mail. Did she? Okay, so someone in the chat said she first talked about this quite a while back with Will folks. Okay, so I thought she just come out after he was sentenced from what I saw on her TikTok. I sent her a request or whatever on her TikTok because back when I was looking at it, I think yesterday, I did not screen record her TikToks because I just assumed that she would leave it open, but she did not. So we're going to go ahead and get into this, you guys. So the Daily Mail says, oh, okay, Fit News. That's who she did the interview with. She did the interview with Fit News. Okay. So her name is Lindsay Edwards. She is 28 years old. And we're going off the Daily Mail right now. It says, jurors decided the fate of Alec Murdaugh rendered a swift and sure verdict on Thursday. But they didn't hear more damning evidence against the shame legal scion and his propensity for violence. Alec Murdaugh allegedly beat and raped a prostitute who claims he hired her for a sex trafficking ring to cater to mayors, judges, solicitors, DAs, and police officers. Evidence that was never heard by the jurors. Lindsay Edwards, age 28, made the explosive allegation in a video interview with a South Carolina news site in August. The mother of four, who says she was sex trafficked while working as a pole dancer, recalled multiple incidents around 2014 and 2015 when she was allegedly forced to have sex with Alec and was subjected to multiple savage attacks by the attorney who was sentenced to life in prison on Friday. So really quick, I watched the interview and I'll link it, but she says that she had a baby. She was married, had a child, and her and her husband split up. Her child was pretty young, and she was trying to figure out how she could work a job, make enough money as a single mom to pay all the bills. And, no normal minimum wage job was going to do that. She said she was always, good at dancing and really enjoyed dancing. She's like, I've always really enjoyed dancing. Even to this day, she has a pole in her house where she does for exercise. Like if you were able to view her TikTok, you would see that it seems like she was like kind of almost giving lessons on how to do like this or that on the pole, just to kind of show how you can dance on the pole and how it can be used for exercise and all of that, right? So she says she, enjoying dancing and needing to have a job where she made more than minimum wage, but could still kind of work her hours around her daughter. She decided that she was going to get a job stripping because, she said the money was pretty good and she could work at night and, during the day spend time with her little girl. So she got a job. She got a job stripping, and she even named the strip club that she worked at, where she ended up meeting her madam. And she said a while after she worked at this strip club, she started hearing several girls talk about these private parties where they were dance at. And they were saying how they made more money doing this than even stripping. So she figured, well, maybe I can do that and not have to strip and just start doing these private parties and, pay the bills and maybe not have to strip. So she signed up to do it, told the other girls, I want to do this. So she said the first time that she was picked up to go to a private party, she thought they were just going to be dancing. She's like, I thought it was like, maybe bachelor parties where we would go and that was it. She said very quickly after the madam picked all the girls up, they had a bodyguard in the front passenger seat and the madam was driving. And the madam starts handing out condoms and telling them, do not be the one to initiate anything. The client knows what they're going to get and what you guys will do. But to avoid, this being like a police sting operation, like the client knows how much they're supposed to give y'all. So do not ask, like, hey, give me my money. You can say, I take donations, and that's their cue to like pay you what that set rate is. But do not say, hey, give me my money, and then start. And don't even bring up donations until they expose themselves. And she told the interviewer the reason that the men would have to expose themselves first is because no police officer would go that far. Like if it was a sting operation, they would go in the room, try to talk to the women, and try to get the women to start doing something to them and start asking for payment first. But if they expose themselves, rest assured they're not a police officer and you can continue on with the situation. She said at that point she realized this is not what I thought that it was. I need to get out of here. So she asked the lady to bring her back. She said, I didn't know that we was going to be any more than dancing. Can you please bring me back to my car? Everybody would drive to the madam's house. So everybody's car was at the madam's house. She also had them like turn off their location, and she had mirrors like rigged up on the back of the car so they can kind of see if they were texting anybody or anything like that. So she ended up going, and it was like a little, it was like a house party situation where Alec was there, and several other lawyers. She said there were several other lawyers, and she said there's big people that she saw on TV while watching this murder trial besides Alec. that was there. So she said Alec quickly took to her and they began talking. And she said that he said exactly who he was. My name is Alec Murdaugh. I'm a prosecuting attorney from, and she said they kind of bonded after that because she was from Buford. She's like, when he said who he was, like that name sound familiar, and I'm like, oh, I'm from Buford. She said, so we really kind of, and then it put me at ease a little bit. Um, but to me, that was like a red flag for me, and I don't want to say that I don't believe her, but I just have to imagine, and maybe not, that if you were being called in to be, you know, service these high-powered attorneys and judges and mayors, I would have to feel like they would not tell you their real name or what they do for a living. They would at least give like, I don't know, like you know what I'm saying, like a fake name. Even the interviewer was like, "Oh, he told you his name the first time you met him," and she's like, "Yeah, he told me his name." So I was kind of shocked to hear that he did tell her his name right from jump. She said she said they had cocaine and they went through the cocaine that like Alec and his buddies had. So they bought like 2 more 8 balls from the madam. And that night there was not enough like strippers to be there, so the madam had to service one of the guys as well. So she said there was a lot of like Percocet, oxys, and cocaine going around, drinking. She says she talked for Alec for a while, got comfortable, and then they went to the room where, she said she wasn't extremely uncomfortable at this time because they had talked for so long. But once they started getting physical, he got physical. Like he started slapping her and things, and she got scared. She got scared. And so they did whatever they were supposed to do, and she grabbed her clothes and she ran out and she ran to the bodyguard and told the bodyguard, or she actually ran to the madam and told the madam, I want to leave. And the madam said, well, we're not done yet. And so she went to the bodyguard and told the bodyguard what happened. And she said, normally in any other circumstance, if any man got out of the way with them like this, the bodyguard would handle up on it, like put a gun to their head, threaten to kill them, for mistreating their workers. But the bodyguard said, well, let me go talk to the madam. Went to talk to the madam and came back and said, I'm sorry, the madam doesn't want me to do anything about it. Like she just brushed it off. Yeah, he choked her in. She thought he was going to kill her. So that's what he did when they were doing the do. He was choking her. He slapped her. So she was shocked. She was like, what the heck? Like, normally they would not stand for this. Something else that kind of struck me as odd, she said the first night that she went to do all this, when she thought she was just dancing and they started passing out the condoms and she was like, bring me back home. She said the madam was like, got kind of irate with her, and that the bodyguard like put a gun to her head and was like, we're not going back, and if you tell anybody, we'll kill you and your daughter. You know what I'm saying? But then afterwards, when she tells about how she went to the bodyguard for help, for him to do something, because that was kind of his job, she said, he even felt bad for me. He even felt bad that had just happened to me. And I'm like, hold up, but hold on. Hold on. But he's the one that put a gun to your head and told you he would kill you and your daughter. You know what I'm saying? There were things that had me questioning, but I guess being on YouTube this long, I started to question everything. Before YouTube, I didn't question anything. I just believed everybody's story and thought, oh my God, that's terrible. And I just believed it. Now, being on YouTube after seeing so many people lie about things, there's little things that I'll pick up on. And I'm like, well, let me at least discuss that in case anybody else picks up on that. But I don't want to discredit her story. She was willing to be a witness in this trial if need be. But the judge said no. So let's continue on with what the Daily Mail says, and then we'll talk more about this interview. So prosecutors told the Daily Mail they will now forge ahead with over 100 other charges against Alec, including financial crimes and assisted suicide for a life insurance plot and obstruction of justice. He also faces an investigation into drug trafficking. But the South Carolina Attorney General's office declined to comment on the status of a reported probe into Edwards' claims of a 4-time savage beating and rape by Alec Murdaugh and his links to the sex trafficking ring within deep law enforcement connections that Jessica is alleging. So this happened 4 times. On 4 different occasions, she was forced to meet up with Alec, and all four occasions was she attacked. And that's, to me, it's like, I'm sorry, but after the first time, I would have went home, got my kid, and we would have disappeared. She mentioned that her family didn't live there, so she didn't have anybody. But I'm like, I think I would have got in touch with my mom or whoever and just said, I've got myself in something deep and I need to go somewhere because I'm scared someone might kill me and my daughter. I would have jetted out. There would not have been a second time I got back in that car. But that's just me, and that's just the way that I was thinking. You know, I don't know. Um. So okay, the South Carolina Attorney General's office declined to comment on the status of. I already read that. Sorry. Let's continue. On August 2nd, Fit News published an interview with Edwards and uploaded it to YouTube, in which she tearfully recounted the horrific tale. Her account was never shown to the jury in Alex's case after the judge ruled last month that it would be too confusing to bring in evidence of his infidelity. So they tried to have this brought up, and the judge said, no, that's just going to be too much. There's already the financial crimes to prove motive, and then to bring this up to prove infidelity. Too much. The judge allowed her to testify, but did not allow the jury to hear about the alleged infidelity. I guess that was probably at like the pre-trial. After his conviction on Thursday, Alec now faces at least 5 separate state investigations, including a financial crimes probe for defrauding clients and associates, charges over trafficking oxycodone and methamphetamines, obstruction of justice, and the investigation of his son's Paul's boat crash that killed 19-year-old Mallory Beach. So I want to go back to the infidelity situation. What's Maggie Murdaugh's sister, Marion, she told the judge that she believed, this is in the pretrial hearing, that she believed that Alec cheated on Maggie like 15 years prior, and that right before the murder, Maggie had brought that up again because it had been bothering her for some reason. And Marion said, you know, Maggie didn't think that it was still going on, but for some reason, the situation that happened 15 years ago, it was bothering her again for some reason. Sorry, you guys. My daughter is at school texting me. Give me 2 seconds. I'm so sorry. All right. So Marianne, acknowledges that her sister told her that 15 years ago Alec cheated on her. But Marianne didn't know anything about any other situation. And Jessica testifies that this started 2014, 2015. So, in regards to this situation, the prosecutor said that they do intend to pursue other charges pending against Alec Murdaugh, but there are no charges against him at this time related to sex trafficking or sexual assault. He says we cannot confirm and certainly cannot comment on anything that may or may not be under investigation. That was the South Carolina Attorney General's Office spokesperson, Robert Kittle. He told that to the Daily Mail. He said other than the 4 charges he was just convicted of, there are 99 state grand jury financial charges pending against Alec, and 3 local charges related to the roadside shooting incident: conspiracy, false claim for payment, and filing a false police report. In an interview last August with Fit News, Will Folk, Edwards said her madam brought her and several other girls to a private party at a beach house on the Isle of Palms in 2014, early 2015, where she met Alec. She said it was apparently a guys' weekend or something like that. There was a bunch of guys there drinking, doing drugs. They had a fire going on the deck. They were eating food and just hanging out. I think for the first hour, we were just taking shots, doing cocaine, smoking weed, hanging out by the fire, and just talking and getting to know each other. That's where I met Alec. There were at least enough girls there for everybody. They had their pick of the crowd. He attached himself to me. He was very nice, very gentleman-like at first. He told her he was a personal injury lawyer out of Hampton, South Carolina. She said when it came time to actually service him, my expectations were still pretty high. I was like, okay, it shouldn't be that bad. I've already done this a good hundreds of dozens of times at this point, and he seemed really nice. But Edwards said that's where the nightmare began. She said you could see his whole personality change. You could see it in his eyes. Maybe it was the cocaine and everything. His pupils got so much bigger to the point where his eyes were almost solid black. I was violently choked with both hands. I was pinned down to the bed by my throat. It was at that point where I couldn't breathe. I was blacking out and seeing spots, seeing stars. I was beating and scratching on his wrist as much as possible to get him to stop because I thought at that moment I was going to die. I was also being violently penetrated. As soon as he was done, I got up and ran out as fast as possible, even completely naked. She was set up with another job with Alec at a hotel in North Charleston a few weeks later without her knowledge that that's where she was going. She said this time actually, that's not true. She said it was without her knowledge. It was without her knowledge at first, but on her way, she found out. On her way to be dropped off at the hotel, she found out that it was going to be with Alec. So she, when she was being taken there, she actually ordered an Uber to meet her at the hotel. So her madam dropped her off. She went into the lobby, let the madam leave, and the Uber pulled in not long after that, and she jetted. And she said she was going to try to get to the madam's house because the madam had other girls to drop off at other locations. She wanted to get to the madam's house before the madam got back. And so she said, she told that Uber, I'll give you $100 to drive as fast as you can. So he brings her to the madam's house. But at this time, like her phone starts ringing, she assumes Alec has either called her madam and told her madam she didn't show, or her madam has saw her like location to see that she's headed back to her house. She said either way, when the Uber was pulling in to drop her off, she saw the madam turning in at the end of the road. So she jumped in her car and she took off. She said that they went on a high-speed chase for like an hour because she lived like an hour from the madam or whatever. So she said for like an hour, she said we were going every bit of 85, 90, 85 to 100 miles per hour. That's something else that threw a kind of red flag to me because I'm like, I live in a small town, and to get to the city, we have to drive like an hour and a half. And, there may be very minimum times I've driven that whole route and not met a cop. But like 99% of the times, I see a cop sitting somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, you drove for like an hour or more, drive 85 to 100 miles per hour, and never saw a cop? And she's like, she was telling me to the point if I were to stop, like if I were to, like, she would have crashed into me. Maybe she's kind of exaggerating a little bit about the speed or how long they ride. I don't know. But that one kind of threw me for a loop because I'm like, at no time y'all saw a cop? She said finally when they get to like one road, an hour and a half into it or so, the madam turns off. She said, I guess she realized like, hey, she's supposed to have to start going to pick up these other girls. So she figured she would deal with me later. She said, I drove straight to my house. I don't know where her daughter was at this time. She said she got in her closet, and in her closet, there was another little hideaway where her hot water heater was. So she hid in there, terrified that they were going to come find her. But I'm like, well, then why did you go home? I would have went and brought my cell phone home, went to Walmart, bought me a little cheap cell phone, and went somewhere else. I would have went to the park. I would have went to the movies, anywhere rather than my house, the one place they know where I live. You know what I'm saying? But she said she went home and hid. She said about an hour after hiding, she hears them pull up and kind of chaos ensues. She said the bodyguard ripped her like window unit out of her bedroom window and tore the house tore the house up looking for her, and they ended up finding her in that little hideaway. She said the bodyguard dragged me out of my house by my hair, and I'm like, you ain't got no neighbors? I would have been screaming like, what? Like, I don't know. So there was just things to me where I'm like, ah. Auntie and Haley says, girl, I live in SC, and I'm sorry, there's no driving 85 forever an hour and not seeing a cop or someone calling on you. That's what I was thinking. So, either way, she said they pull her out of the house and put her in the car and bring her back to Alec and deliver her personally. And she said the madam stood in the room while Jessica serviced Alec. She said this time he ripped chunks of hair out of my head. She said she had a big bald spot at the crown of her head. As she kind of pulled her hair up, she said it's still taking it like a while to grow. It's still kind of shorter than everything else. But she said her madam stood there and watched Alec kind of do this. And she said, like, I guess the madam was like mad at her too, so she wasn't gonna stop it. Just a few days later, she claimed the madam set her up with Alec again. She said she still had handprints around her neck that she was covering up with makeup. She said she feared for her life and managed to escape. Nope, this is the wrong one. Okay, the Daily Mail has it kind of confused. But either way, this time I'm going to read what the Daily Mail typed out about the hotel encounter. So they say she feared for her life, managed to escape by smuggling her phone with her, calling her a cab. 5 hours later, her captors found her at home, dragged her out, and she was forced to go back and service Alec. So, and she did say it was like an hour and a half chase. Once she got home, it was like an hour or so later before they found her. And then like the hour and a half drive back to the hotel. So I'm like, Alec been at this hotel like the almost 4 hours just waiting on you to show back up. Like he didn't think, well, she took off. I'm gonna go home or go do whatever. He waited all this time. Either way, they brought her back to the hotel. She said, 5 hours later, her captors found her at home, dragged her out, and she was forced to go back and serve as Alec. She said he was even more pissed then. I got hair pulling, choking. If he wasn't choking me, I had a wash rag shoved in my mouth. I was being slapped across my face violently for a good 20 or 30 minutes. Can you imagine being slapped across your face for 20 or 30 minutes? Edwards said when she asked her pimp why she let Murdaugh beat her, the woman told her, when she asked her, Madam, why do they let Alec do this to her? The madam said he was in her personal phone. She said, he's in my personal phone, meaning he was a personal friend. Not, because she said her madam had like little flip phones that she would change out ever so often to avoid detection. She said, but Alec was in her personal phone. Edwards said she finally decided to come forward after recognizing Alec amid his murder investigation and hoped she could use the notoriety to help campaign for women's reproductive rights, an issue close to her heart. She told Fit News she doesn't want any money for her story and that any payout from a possible civil lawsuit would go to a charity for human trafficking victims. She said, I would like to open up a foundation for human trafficking victims so they can start their lives over and not have to fight tooth and nail like I had to get where I am today. Edwards' lawyers, former state lawmaker Mandy Powers Norrell, previously confirmed that the mother of four has spent hours with officers from South Carolina Law Enforcement Division recounting her story. SLED did not respond. Here's the thing, okay. So Jessica, in her interview, she said they serviced members of SLED. She's like, there were members of SLED. She said, we serviced police officers because they were in our back pocket and they would let our madam know if a sting was going to be set up or if they were looking into us. She said there were police officers that we serviced because they would give us info. There were solicitors that we serviced and they protected us and they kept us from getting busted. She said there were members of SLED. So my thing is like, it's been a few years since she's been a part of this situation now. How does she know the SLED officer that she's recounting her story to, if all this is true, is not a part of this? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do we... Anyways, SLED did not respond to requests for comment about the situation. So I do want to show some little bits and pieces of her. Actually, I'm going to show you guys some pictures first. Either way, there were, like I said, there were some things that just, I'm like, that sounds kind of hard to believe, but I don't want to judge her and like diminish like what happened to her. You know, sometimes when things are said, you just really have to, especially if it don't make sense, you just have to be like, wait. I mean, my thing is like, if I was Alec Murdaugh and I lived the life that I lived and was as well known as I was, and I hired a prostitute, I would not tell them my real name. You know what I'm saying? I might wear a mask. I don't know. So this is her with her family now. Let me me see if there's anything up here. Okay, so this is her. Hold on. This is so crazy because she looks like my sister-in-law a little bit. I ain't even gonna lie. She looks a lot like my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law got dark hair. All right, Alec. Here's the video, which I will link it in the description box below for the interview. And I think we're going to go through and kind of listen to a few things. Because there are a few things I just wanted to kind of listen with you guys about. Now, this is her on TikTok. Let me make it a little bit smaller. Hold on. She made it private. And even the guy interviewing her says, like, so I have to ask, a lot of people are going to say that you're lying. Like, what's your response to that? She's like, yeah, people say I'm doing this for money, but I'm not. Like, if I was to get any money for this, I would want it to go to, like, help victims. So that's her on her TikTok. That's now private. Here is to paying for the rest of the week. I don't know what that means. There she is. I think she's 28 now. So she was like 20, like 2021. There she is in the interview. Oh, there's a strawberry banana smoothie. Oh, and a face thing. Anyways, I'm going to pull this interview up really quickly, and we're going to listen to some of it. Because there's some things that I think are really interesting. Just give me a time, because for some reason I did not think to write down.
Welcome everybody to the Fitz News Studios, a very special and depriving people access.
I did not think to write down timestamps for some reason. I don't know why I didn't. All right, so let me see.
Now that South Carolina is going to be scared to even ask their parents. And, all in all, it'll prevent more abortions from happening and people from...
So this ruling pissed you off?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Oh, sorry. So that's where she's going over, the reason she decided to come out is because the Roe v. Wade ruling.
Who, I guess, portrayed me as or see me as, oh, she's just another prostitute, or she was just fucking for money and stuff like that. And it's a lot more deeper than that. I mean,
Bad language, you guys. I want you guys to hear how she got into this.
Thanks for getting ready for this interview, but we were breaking down the difference of, there's dancing, there's sex work, but then there's people who are legitimately forced into, it's rape in some of these cases, right?
Yeah. And, honestly, dancers, prostituting, and human trafficking all kind of fall under the lines of sex workers. I mean, dancing is definitely, it's a sex work in a way, but it's in a different fashion, a lot more innocent and legal fashion, per se. They all fall under, the sex workers category. With the human trafficking, your body, your choice. I mean, if you want to go out and sell yourself for money, go ahead. But it's when it comes to the fact of somebody else doing it for you and controlling you and telling you who.
So she says, it's all sex, label sex work, like stripping, dancing, and then prostitution or whatever. She said, but the difference is if you're forced to do it, because she's saying she was forced. She was not forced for dancing, but she said she was forced into prostitution. Why don't they give her a lie detector test? Yeah. She's 28 now.
Who you're going to service, how you're going to service them, and everything like that, even if you don't want to, because that person is abusive or has harmed you in the past, harmed others in the past, then it does become rape at that point.
We're going to get into just how abusive Alec Murdaugh was in a little bit, but before we get to that, I wanted to just bring people into the progression that you went through. You started as a dancer, is that right?
Yeah. I was going through my divorce with my first husband, and I had a 5-month-old daughter, and there was no way I've been able to support a household, my child, and myself 500 miles away from where I grew up and where all my family was.
So she's giving her explanation, and I have to stop and comment, you guys. I'm so sorry. I know it gets aggravating, but I have to stop and comment so it falls under fair use. I got my nails done at a local nail shop right here in the town that I live in. I posted a picture on the Bash Chat because a lot of people have been asking. They glow in the dark. They're very cute. I really love them. It's a local nail shop, but I think you can go to your nail shop and ask for glow in the dark nails, and they could probably do it. So she's explaining how she got into this. Newly separated, 5-month-old, knowing that she could not get a job at like a grocery store and pay all of the bills.
So I took to dancing and made decent money. I wouldn't say it was horrible. I mean, I was able to get bills paid and not have to worry too much about having certain things shut off, unless the fact that I would oversleep the next day and just forget to go to the companies and pay them, because all I would have is cash. I never really put it into bank cards or debit cards or anything like that. But when, I guess you can say, like, clientele would die down during holidays and stuff like that would come into the clubs, the fees to even work in a strip club were still extremely high, because you would have house fees, you would have DJ tip outs, bouncer tip outs, manager tip outs, everything like that. So you could make like $1,200-$1,500 a night, but you're still going to be walking away with probably about $600. Just
But
from
that's
all the fees
still
that come along
good.
with it.
She's saying like you could make $1,200 a night, but paying all your fees, it would, you still walk away with like $600 a night, that's crazy. Is it that the point of child support and alimony? True story, Kelsey. I would have been quick to the child support office, because a lot of single mothers don't make the money that men have the ability to make. Yeah. Is it dip powder? I think so. Yeah, I think it was dip powder.
With everything was working in a club. And when, I guess you can say, I started traveling out and going to other clubs outside of Hilton Head, I went up to Charleston. I worked at Stilettos. I worked at the Southern Belle, which is now Goodfellas Cabaret.
So Stilettos is the primary one where she worked at. So she worked at Stilettos, moved around to a few other ones, but went back to Stilettos. I skipped it just a little bit.
It's not as good. And I kind of stuck with staying at Stilettos a lot and realizing that they had a very large clientele coming in, a lot of people, a lot of sales. It was a lot more suitable to be a dancer there, because you would actually make money and not have to pay so much to leave the club every night. But the amount that I was traveling from Beaufort all the way to Charleston, 6 nights a week on top of $300 a week in childcare, it was still like just barely making it.
At this point, you're just dancing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I never wanted to be the type of person that even worked in the clubs that would suck dick for money, fuck in the back rooms, or anything like that. That was never my forte whatsoever. I always was very strict and in my lane with that, because I've seen.
So she's saying here, and I put it on fast feed. I hope you guys can still understand it. But she's saying here that she didn't mind the dancing, but she never wanted to be one of those at the club that in the back room did extra services. That they will take you to the back for a private dance, but there are some that will do other things. You know what I'm saying? So she says she never wanted to be that. That was not her type of situation. So she was very clear about that. That's what she's saying.
Other girls do it, and I see how it makes every other girl in the club upset and mad, because in a way it's like that gives men in the clubs like a leeway of like, oh, well, we can do this dance, but this girl did this for me, so will you do this for me? And it's like, if you say no, then it's like, oh, then I don't want to deal with you.
Changes expectations.
Yes, it completely gives them the wrong expectation of what a strip club really is.
It forces you to either do it or lose out on money.
Yeah, and I still stuck to my guns. It was not something I wanted to do. And I got word from, I guess you can say, all the girls in the club about this one lady who ran girls for private parties. And me being young and naive, I didn't know really what private parties was.
Now, how old are you at this time?
I'm 28. And back then I was 20 years old.
Okay.
So they wanted to, they were informing me about how this lady would run girls for private parties. We'd basically be doing what we're doing in the club, but in private houses and rental houses, beach houses, wherever maybe where guys are having like bachelor parties and stuff, or like a guys' weekend and everything. And they were very high up men, I guess you can say, and would pay a lot of money for it. And we would make a lot more going with her and doing it privately versus being in the club and having to pay all these fees and tip outs and basically fight for money at that point.
At this point, though, the private parties, your presumption is, I'm just going to dance.
Yeah.
Just same thing, just different location.
Yeah.
Just out of the club.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that's even better because I was like, I can make my own schedule a lot more easier than if I was in the club. It would be a lot more, I guess you can say, flexible in a way, and I could have more time off to be able to spend time with my daughter while still making just as much, if not more. And I was all for.
Everything here sounds pretty believable. What she's saying right here, why she would choose to do the private parties, you know. Like all that sounds believable to me. I haven't heard any red flags really with that. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get my necklace. I have a necklace. I can't put it back on because my nails are so long. I need my husband to put it back on me. But it got tangled up. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to untangle my necklace as we listen.
For it. And I had one of the girls that was very close with her because her older sister also worked for this lady in the past, getting me in. And that's kind of, I guess you can say, how I got in because there was a bunch of other girls that were begging to, but she wouldn't take them. It was only if like you had somebody on the inside that you were able to get it.
So you get in with this madam,
Mhm.
we'll call her, and what happens then?
By the time I got into the car for that night and we start driving around, that's when she kind of fills me in on what we're going to be actually doing. And that includes servicing men.
It's servicing.
Sex, blowjobs, everything like that. And she was passing around condoms and everything like that, trying to break down like how to ask for money. Like you ask for donations, you don't ask for a set price. They already know the set price. You go in there, you ask for donations, you don't take off a drop of your clothing until the man has fully exposed himself. When he has fully exposed himself, that's when you collect the donations, and then that's when you take off your clothes.
What's the logic there?
It was more so to see if they were police officers or not, because a police officer cannot fully expose themselves to you. And when you're asking for donations rather than just for money in general, then that eliminates, I guess you could say, the ability to prosecute for solicitation.
Okay. It's because it's not a payment, it's a gift.
Yes.
Okay.
But, okay, so there, what threw a red flag for me is she's like, you don't ask for your payment, you ask for donations. And she says the client already knows the set price. So if the madam was speaking with the client, say this was a sting operation. Say this was a sting operation and the madam was speaking to the client and says, okay, our set amount is going to be X, Y, and Z. When our worker gets to you, she'll ask for her donation or whatever. So at some point, you know, because she says, the madam tells them they already know the set fee. So they've already been told we charge X, Y, and Z. So to me, that kind of debunks the whole thing. Because any communication, a sting operation, you know, if this was a sting operation, any communication would be taped. So at one point when they're telling them the fee, I'm sure it would be taped. So it wouldn't matter if at that moment the girl said donation or not, because they're still going to have, you know, them talking to the madam to set the situation up and giving them the set rate.
I got it. So this is 2014?
Late 2014, yeah. I want to say about December.
And
Ish.
so you're in the car, you're on to the first party, and you had no idea until then exactly what would transpire.
I had no idea. And then once I kind of figured out what was going to be happening, I was like, can we just go back to my car? I really don't want to do this or anything like that. I'd rather go home. I'd rather just go work back at the club. And that upset this lady a lot. And she started driving around in random circles around town, speeding, slamming on brakes, going around circles. And the bodyguard that was in the front seat was loading up a gun, ready to put it to my head in a way.
Okay, so this was a red flag to me too, because they have people, men, that are paying top dollar, that they have appointments. They have appointments for these women to be dropped off at these appointments. But now she just drives around town aimlessly. I can't say it. Aimlessly? Yeah, aimlessly. Slamming on the brakes and taking off and slamming on the because she's mad that the girl won't do it or don't want to do it. Did that not make them late for their appointments? So that, I don't know, question that one as well.
To almost like influence me and threaten me. And I was freaking out and scared at that time. I was like, I really just don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then they started threatening about killing me, finding my daughter, killing my daughter, going after my family if I did not do this or if I chose to do this and then go home and report it to police.
So at this point, you're not a sex worker, you're a sex slave.
Yeah.
Wow.
It went from like 0 to 100 in a matter of like 20 minutes. And I can say on my first appointment, I guess you can say I went to, I tried to get off with just dancing, I guess you can say, and lap dances and stuff. I did it fully naked and everything, but they kept requesting stuff. And then that's when I guess my madam got out of the car and then just came in the house that we were at and basically bitched me out for a good like 30, 40 minutes and then stood outside the door to make sure that I actually did service them.
You said something yesterday when we were talking, and it was sort of like the point where you went from, okay, this is a way I can make money, where I'm providing for my family, and that it was something like dancing you actually like to do.
Yeah, I enjoy dancing. I mean, that was.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there, and I'll link it for the rest of you guys to watch, just to see. I don't know. Part of me is like, I could see this. I've always heard of things like this, of big time attorneys being involved in sex rings and things like that. So I can't say that I'm like shocked, and I can't say that I don't necessarily believe it. I'm just, there's things with her, with what she's saying, that I'm kind of like, well, that is kind of weird. Like he straight up told you his name, and then like this, I don't know. There were some things. So you guys watch it and come back and let me know what you guys think. Comment on this video and tell me. Like I said, I don't want to invalidate, what happened to her. If God forbid this is in fact true, man, that's just terrible. That's terrible. And I'm not going to bash anybody for the way they choose to try to take care of their family. But there are some jobs, if you take them, you have to know there are more risk involved than going to be a cashier at Walmart. You know what I'm saying? Supernova said, original Pink Supernova in the chat said, she said a lot of girls wanted this gig. She got in by knowing someone. She knew exactly what the deal was, and no way did a madam force her with so many other willing girls. Yes, I'm just like, if there were a lot of girls doing it, surely somebody told exactly what was happening. Right? I don't know. Either way, would I be shocked to hear that Alec Murdaugh hired prostitutes and then got abusive with them? No, I wouldn't. I don't think I would. Just like the Craigslist killer, he was going to med school, had a fiance that he was like great to, had friends that he was great to. I don't think they ever experienced him being violent or anything, but he sure did violently kill girls, I know, right, Judy? But anyways, you guys, I wanted to talk about this and wanted to do a video on this. We're knocking on an hour, and YouTube does not like videos are an hour long. But you guys just leave me your thoughts. I'm gonna link the full video. You guys go check it out. Like I said, her TikTok is now locked down. It's private. I would assume that she might be getting some pushback, and I just think probably if you don't believe her, you don't believe her. I don't think anybody needs to go attack this woman, because here's the thing. If she is telling the truth, then to attack her and invalidate it, I think questioning is okay, actually. I honestly think questioning is the smart thing to do, when things come out like this, especially if things kind of throw up red flags. You're like, well, this kind of seems like a red flag. I don't think anything was wrong with questioning, maybe, but to go after this girl and attack her or call her names or anything, in the slight chance that she is, or not slight chance, but say she is telling the truth, and then we just or someone attacked her over something that actually did happen. So you guys leave me your thoughts. Go watch the video and let me know. Also, we're going to be covering over on the Bass Chat, Honey Boo Boo and Pumpkin reacting to Draylen's arrest. And it is disgusting the way they reacted to his arrest. And I'm going to be going over that later today. So you guys join me on the Bass Chat to talk about that. There's also other things we're going to be covering on this channel too today. I hope to God if I have time. Y'all, I swear my family life never slows down with 6 kids. There's always, we got a doctor's appointment in just a minute and tons of things. But anyways, you guys please consider subscribing to the channel. I would love to have you as a member of the Elle Bee channel. Share this video if you think anyone on your Facebook or Twitter would like to see this video and hear about the situation. Like I said, I will link this video in the comment section. I'll pin it to the top of the comments and in the description box so you guys can go watch the video yourself. All right, you guys. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys back here and over in the Bass Chat later today. Goodbye, everyone.